And so first up, we have Pierre Rogers from Yayan. Pierre, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Rob, so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So yeah, whenever you're ready, feel free to take it away.
Fantastic. Let me just share my screen real quick.
Yep, we can see it. And we got a full screen here.
Fantastic. So about a year ago, my wife and I had this very, very rare chance to actually go out to dinner without the kids. For us, that's a big deal, right? So we got all dressed up, got all fancy, a very rare occurrence in our lives right now with two little ones. Went out to this fantastic restaurant. The waiter brings me this encyclopedia, this volume that is the wine list. And I'm flipping through it, and I think I kind of know wines, and I don't recognize 60, 70, 80% of what's on this list. My wife excuses herself to the powder room, and I whip out my phone real quick, and I text two friends of mine. They happen to be sommeliers at the French Laundry, and they give me excellent recommendations. Come back to the table, the wine is presented, everything is amazing, and my wife makes the comment, well, it must be nice to have a sommelier in your pocket. And actually, that's where the idea of Yayan came about. So, hi, my name is Pierre Rogers. I'm the founder of Yayan, and we seek to completely disrupt the three-tier system around how wine is distributed and how you can become an instant sommelier using our software. So what have we done here? We have simply put, made it the easiest place to find wine anywhere in the world. So if you're familiar how the three-tier system works, or you just think about how you buy wine right now, whether you go to Whole Foods or a local liquor store, the overlap, the amount of wine that you see at Costco, Whole Foods, etc., those major distributors, the overlap between those stores is really, really high. And that's because that's the three-tier system, right? So it's made by a producer, goes to a distributor, to a wholesaler, out to a retailer, and then to you. And so you've got things like markup that happen there, but more importantly, you have access. You can't get, if you're a small and mid-sized producer of this amazing bottle of wine, you can't get into that system. The margin is too thin, the volume requirements are too high, you just can't get there. And then as a user, how the heck would you even find any of those people? So our study has shown that 78% of wine is chosen by its users, chosen by just two qualifiers. One, brand awareness, and two, is actually the aesthetic of the label. If you think about that, it's kind of comical, right? Because neither one of those have to do with what it actually tastes like. And here at Yayan, we seek to change that completely using our partnership with an AI company to build a profile to your specific palate relative to the wines that are out there. So we'll get into that more in a second. So wine is a really unique industry because it's highly regulated. You already know it's really hard to pick out a bottle of wine you like, and we can solve that problem of finding the most optimized bottle using our Tastery AI partnership. However, small growers can't get the wine to you due to permits, taxes, regulatory hurdles. Due to how the current three-tier system works, you will most likely never be exposed to these amazing wines. At Yayan, we built a powerful selling platform that does all of the back-end compliance work that you don't really want to hear about and the winemaker doesn't want to deal with. We then pair our recommendation tool with a compliance tool, and we open up an entire world with one click. Not only is that important to the customer, but it's really important to the producers. That gives us the perfect storm of the best selection with the best bespoke recommendations, that's critical, that has the possibility of Yayan becoming the largest seller of wine on the internet. So real quick, just want to give you a couple of little facts around the wine market. Online wine market, because of COVID, is up over 300%, actually up over 330% since COVID came on. But where was it compared to where is it now? It's a $100 billion annual industry just here in the United States alone. However, only 5% of that currently is done online. So very, very small. So big market, small internet penetration, but that number is growing at a rapid, rapid rate. COVID only added jet fuel to that, and we are actually in the right place at the right time. We've obviously been working on this way before COVID, so I'll take the win. Currently, there's nobody else out there doing what we are doing. There's wine.com and Wine Library and Vivino, and those are more traditional e-com retailers. This is a completely different way of disrupting the three-tier system and getting you, the consumer, the drinker, exposed to these amazing wines that we know with a high degree of certainty using our AI model that you're going to enjoy them. Real quick, just so that we're tight on time, this is how the seamless experience works. We do an integration into the winemaker, right into their point of sales and inventory system. We list that on Yayan. We drive your reviews, or I should say your bespoke tasting profile, and marry that or match that with other wines in the space that you may or may not have heard of. The winery delivers the wine directly to you, and you have a great experience. We capture revenue on all successful transactions. We're growing pretty fast. So we're growing at nearly 40% month over month. That's in terms of new users. Part of that is fueled by COVID. Part of that is from our PR and our marketing efforts. And the last thing I really wanted to touch upon and be sensitive to time was right here, was our team. So who are we? So I'm a former VC turned entrepreneur, a little bit unique in that regard. Have had the experience of both passing and investing in dozens and dozens of companies over a handful of years. So I've really been able to see what works and what doesn't work. It's really given me a great advantage. Josh Levitt, the CFO, he's actually also from the VC side. He grew the fund from about 4 million in AUM to 350 million in AUM in just 3 years. So rapid growth there. Robert is our CTO. Robert's been first in on a number of huge names and had many successful exits, some public, some acquisition. So just a huge benefit to us there. Jack Embry's on the marketing side, really well known in the luxury space. But I'm really proud of our board as well and some of the people that have invested in us. So famous investor Neil Patel from the venture space has given us kind of 2 thumbs up and given us a strong recommendation on investing in Yayan through the Netcapital platform. So we're really proud of that accolade. Jonathan Cooper, well-known investor and entrepreneur. Long story short, started a company and exited to Canopy. So that's been he's been very meaningful investor with us as well as board member. Todd was the architect behind the Grey Goose and Bacardi acquisition, which at the time was the largest in the spirits world, formerly of PepsiCo, super valuable there. Pam Hamlin is just a freaking rock star in the marketing space. Remember that women drink wine almost 2 to 1 more than men. So having a strong female marketing voice is critical to our success. And we know that Pam, given her amazing track record, is just that. And then lastly, Chris, Ludacris, Bridges, yes, that Ludacris, film star, rap star, etc. So he joined our board, and he brings, obviously the celebrity is great, but more specifically, he has a cognac brand, restaurant brand, etc. So just dyed-in-the-wool entrepreneur, and it's been fantastic for sort of keeping us cool and really helping with our branding. So I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks, Pierre. And we appreciate you keeping on time here. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. So if anyone has questions, please put them in the Q&A chat. We've got a couple coming in already. So right off the bat, Pierre, can you talk to us about your pricing? Is it still competitive compared to big box stores, et cetera?
Yeah, so remember, we don't set the pricing, right? So the vineyards get to set their pricing of their bottles of wine. We charge a success fee. So effectively what that looks like is we charge 14% gross, that's 12% to the seller, just 2% to the buyer. And that's how we make our money. So we can't set those prices. However, when you think about how a winery sells its product, they sell it either at the winery, that's where they make the most margin, right? No middleman. They sell it to a restaurant if they can get in, bigger middleman chunk, right? So they're giving up a chunk of revenue, but higher volume. And then lastly, the 3-tier system, which as we discussed, really difficult to get into. So for us, for them being on Yayan, especially now that tasting rooms are closed, this is a fantastic way for them to be able to sell more wine. And because they can be more competitive, our prices are cheap. Our general price per bottle is more attractive than it will be at a big box store like a Bevmo or a Total Wine or any of those.
Great, thanks. And then we got a couple more questions here. So do you pay for a fee for membership? Do people pay a fee for membership?
No, we do not have a membership program. We do not have a subscription program. That's very much on purpose. So Wink is kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the membership subscription model. And the churn rate within all subscriptions, not just Wink, have been on the rise, right? As customers have gotten kind of subscription fatigue. And when you look at how a subscription model in wine works, let's say I charge Rob $100 a month and I send him 5 bottles of wine. The only way I can make more money is to get lower and lower priced goods and continue to charge Rob $100, right? So it means that me and the customer are kind of at odds. I want to actually deliver lower and lower quality goods to him while not losing him. We don't think that's a really great model. And actually Wink doesn't sell any wine that's, I'll call it real wine. They use all custom crush pad wine. So they can offer really, really low prices, which is fantastic for that subset. But for us, we want to offer really the artisans, the craftsmen, the men and women with boots, dirt on their boots, to really be able to identify them and give them access to the largest DTC market in the world, which is the United States.
Great. So we've got a couple of questions. Do you have what are your current revenues? And what's the current valuation of the company?
Good question. So I'll start with the last one. So $5 million valuation. We're doing $1 million raise on Netcapital, of which about 50% is actually already raised. So shout out to Netcapital. You guys have been awesome. Current revenue is, we went live less than 60 days ago. And in that time, our first 30 days in, we did more than 50 grand in sales. And we are on track to actually double that this month. That's 50 grand gross, of which we make our 14% on, just to be clear.
Great. And then a couple more here. Looks like cases are sold. Most people not want to try a whole case? Do you sell by the case or sell by the individual bottle?
So we can, all of the above is the short answer. So you can buy an individual bottle and you can buy a case or anywhere in between. So we've seen some orders that are quite large, $10,000 orders where they've ordered 15, 20, 30 different bottles of wine. And we've seen the individual come in and try one bottle. It really comes down to where you are located, you being the buyer, and where the wine is relative to the cost of shipping. So there's an unfair advantage to every one of us that lives on the West Coast because most of the wine in the United States is Oregon, Northern California, and Central Coast. So if you happen to live on the west side of the country, your cost per bottle shipping is lower than it is, let's say, if you're in New York City. We do work with some retailers and distributors to lower the overall cost of carry, so shipping costs, and give us a broader net. So I can talk about that more in the future. Bev Max, not Bevmo, Bev Max has recently signed on to the platform. They've given us 7,000 SKUs, huge hubs in New York State and Connecticut. Game changer for us from a shipping perspective. Long-winded answer, you can order whatever you want. I will say with one small caveat, Magnum bottles, larger format bottles, are still very difficult as an industry to ship because the cost is still high. A case of wine or a single bottle or a 3-pack, really, really easy. But anything that's oversized can get really expensive.
Awesome. Thanks, Pierre. And we have 2 more quick questions. So one is, can you talk about kind of the pricing for the investment and how you got to the valuation of 5 million? So both the valuation and the price per share.
Yeah, certainly. Good question. So, when you're an early stage company, it's part art, part science, right? Because, in the beginning, you have no revenue. So our first round, our sort of first friends and family round was actually raised by myself. I invested a little north of $250,000 of my own money to get the company up and off the ground. And then John Cooper, the GP over at Evolution Ventures, he came in and invested about $600,000. And what we did is we took all the IP that we had built, the team that we were able to build, the value that the board brings, that the team brings, size of addressable market, shake it up into a cocktail and go, okay, if we're even remotely successful in this space, here's what our valuation would be. And then we also wanted to take a look at other startups that were roughly in the same position that we were in terms of employees, market size, et cetera, and just make sure that our pricing was sort of in line with theirs. So that's where we came up with our valuation.
Great. And we don't have any time for more questions on Yayan, but I'll leave you, Pierre, with the last word. Someone asked, can you tell us about the name of the company?
Yeah, I love this. So that is an homage. Yayan is actually the Greek Hebrew name, ancient Hebrew name, and used in biblical texts as the very first word for wine as we know it. So it is our way of sort of paying homage to the history and the tradition of Yayan. We know it's a difficult name to say. That's somewhat on purpose, but that's what Yayan is and what it means.
Thanks, Pierre.
Thanks,
And
Rob.
I know, no problem. So I know Vicky asked a question about where we can find the deck and where you can find more information about the company. So for everyone, this presentation is being recorded. We'll send a follow-up email with the recording. There's also in the chat right now, you can find links to each company's offering page. Those pages include all the information about the company, the valuation, the price per share, how to invest, as well as the offering statement and the pitch deck and the other additional information. And if you have additional questions for any of the entrepreneurs, there's just a discussion board there where you can write a question, and I'm sure all of you guys will get right on responding. So with that, again, thanks, Pierre. We appreciate your time.